Michael Jordan. Secretly, tips a struggling waitress. The next day, everything changes. The fluorescent lights of Pete's all-night diner cut through the Chicago darkness, a beacon for late-night travelers and early-morning workers. Inside, Sarah Mitchell's reflection caught her eye as she wiped down the counter. Dark circles under her eyes, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, her blue uniform sporting a fresh coffee stain. But it was her smile that customers noticed first, genuine and warm, despite the exhaustion etched on her face. The wall clock showed 2 a.m., marking hour 14 of what would be a 16-hour double shift. Sarah's muscles ached, but each step, each coffee refill, each friendly greeting carried purpose. Every extra hour meant another therapy session for Tommy, her 8-year-old son, who waited at home under her neighbor's watchful eye. Tommy's photo hung behind the register, his bright smile showing the pure joy that made all her sacrifices worthwhile. The image had been taken on a rare good day, when the occupational therapy had gone well and he'd managed to tie his shoes by himself for the first time. That small victory had cost $300, money well spent, but another bill to add to the growing stack. Sarah's culinary school acceptance letter lay buried in her locker, dated 3 years ago. She'd received it the same week as Tommy's diagnosis. The choice hadn't really been a choice at all. Her son's needs would always come first. Still, she found ways to nurture her passion for cooking, creating special dishes for the diner's menu when Pete let her experiment. The late-night regulars had just cleared out, leaving behind coffee-ringed counters and modest tips. Sarah gathered the bills and coins, mentally calculating how far she was from next week's therapy payment. Tommy's developmental challenges required a specialist, and insurance only covered a fraction of the costs. Each month became a careful balance of which bills to pay and which to negotiate for more time. In the quiet moment between customers, Sarah's hand instinctively went to her throat, feeling for the small silver pendant hidden beneath her uniform. It contained a tiny photo of Tommy as a baby, before the challenges became apparent, before the endless rounds of doctors and specialists. She'd pawned everything else of value long ago, but this remained, a reminder of why she pushed through exhaustion night after night. The kitchen radio played softly in the background, its sports announcer discussing tomorrow's basketball game. The familiar voices had become companions during these long nights, and Tommy loved when she brought home stories about his favorite players. Basketball had become their special connection, the one activity that consistently brought out his focus and joy. The bell above the door chimed, pulling Sarah from her thoughts. The rain had picked up outside, driving in what would likely be the last customers of her shift. She straightened her apron, pushed aside her fatigue, and reached for the coffee pot. Each customer was a chance to earn a little more toward Tommy's next therapy session. Through the window, Chicago's skyline glittered with promise, the same view that had inspired her culinary dreams years ago. She'd imagined her own restaurant, a place where food could bring people together, where she could create more than just meals, but memories. Now, those dreams sat in a different kind of waiting room, alongside unpaid medical bills and therapy schedules. Sarah's notepad bore evidence of her other life. Between orders, she'd sketch recipe ideas or jot down cooking techniques from the cooking shows she managed to catch during Tommy's therapy sessions. Even now, her latest creation, a basketball-themed burger special, had become the diner's most popular item. Pete had even suggested she develop a whole sports-themed menu. The rain drummed steadily on the diner's windows as Sarah prepared for the final stretch of her shift. In a few hours, she'd head home to wake Tommy for school, help him through his morning routine, and catch a few hours of sleep before starting it all again. The exhaustion was bone deep, but so was her determination. What Sarah didn't know as she refilled sugar dispensers and straightened salt shakers was that this ordinary night was about to become extraordinary. Sometimes, life's biggest changes arrive in the quietest moments, wrapped in the simple disguise of just another customer walking through just another door. But for now, she simply continued her routine, unaware that destiny had scheduled a late-night stop at Pete's all-night diner, bringing with it a chance encounter that would transform not just her life, but the lives of countless others. In the soft glow of the fluorescent lights, Sarah Mitchell was just another hard-working single mother, doing whatever it took to give her child a chance at a better life. The morning sun streamed through Sarah's small apartment window as she stood at her tiny kitchen counter, transforming simple ingredients into something special. This was her ritual, the precious hour between the end of her night shift and Tommy's wake-up time when she could practice her culinary passion. Today, she was perfecting a new recipe for the diner's specials board, the three-point burger, complete with 3 kinds of cheese and a secret sauce she'd been developing for weeks. Her hands moved with natural grace through their preparation, each motion precise despite her exhaustion. The kitchen walls told her story. Culinary magazine cutouts shared space with Tommy's therapy schedules and development charts. A diploma from her 6-month basic cooking course hung beside his progress reports, both representing different kinds of victories. In the drawer beneath the magazines lay another story, one written in red ink and final notices. Medical bills, therapy invoices, and payment plans created a paper trail of sacrifice. The latest addition was a notice from Tommy's occupational therapist, gently suggesting an intensive program that could significantly improve his motor skills. The cost equaled 3 months of rent. Sarah's phone alarm chimed softly, signaling time to wake Tommy. She wrapped the completed burger carefully. Pete had promised to try it during her next shift. Her creations had become customer favorites, bringing in extra tips that helped chip away at the bills. Each successful recipe was a small reminder of what might have been if she'd made it to culinary school. Tommy's room was a testament to his love of basketball. Posters of players covered the walls, many carefully arranged at his eye level to help him practice focusing his attention. His collection of therapy tools shared space with mini basketballs, each one serving dual purposes in his development. The game had become more than entertainment. It was a bridge to connecting with the world. "Rise and shine, my MVP," Sarah called softly, using their special nickname. Tommy stirred, his movements still heavy with sleep. Morning routines were challenging, each task requiring patience and encouragement. What took other children minutes could take Tommy an hour, but Sarah never rushed him. These moments were precious, even when they tested her exhausted nerves. As she helped Tommy with his buttons, Sarah noticed his basketball jersey needed mending, another expense to juggle. His occupational therapy exercises had helped with fine motor skills, but buttons remained a daily challenge. Still, he approached each attempt with determination that brought tears to her eyes. His struggles were measured not in points scored but in small victories. A shoelace tied, a zipper managed, a button conquered. The kitchen drawer caught her eye again as they ate breakfast. Hidden beneath the bills was a folder containing her old culinary school plans, course outlines, scholarship applications, and a letter of recommendation from a chef who'd recognized her talent. Sometimes, late at night, she'd review them, allowing herself to imagine what if. But reality always brought her back. Tommy's needs came first. Their neighbor, Mrs. Chen, arrived right on schedule to walk Tommy to school. The elderly woman had become a godsend, refusing payment and saying only that Tommy's smile was compensation enough. She understood Sarah's dreams too, often sneaking her traditional Chinese recipes and insisting that someday Sarah would need them for her own restaurant. Before leaving, Tommy hugged Sarah tight, his grip strong despite his coordination challenges. "Love you, Mom," he said, the words coming out with the slight stutter that marked his speech. These words, these hugs, made every sacrifice worthwhile. His therapist had warned that the stutter might never fully disappear, but each clear word felt like a miracle. Alone in the apartment, Sarah allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. The pile of bills seemed to grow taller, the dreams a little more distant. She picked up a notice from Tommy's therapy center. They were understanding about payment plans, but understanding didn't pay the bills. Her tip money jar sat nearby, half full but nowhere near enough. Still, Sarah refused to let despair take root. She'd learned to find hope in small victories. Tommy's improved handwriting, a customer complimenting her cooking, an extra generous tip that meant one more therapy session. Her dreams hadn't died. They'd just transformed, shaped by love, into something different but no less valuable. As she prepared for a few hours of sleep before her next shift, Sarah reviewed her recipe notes. Pete's Diner might not be a 5-star restaurant, but it was her kitchen for now. Each special she created, each customer she served, was a step toward something better, not just for her, but for Tommy. What Sarah couldn't know was that her next shift would bring more than just another opportunity to showcase her cooking. Sometimes dreams don't die when we set them aside. They simply wait for the right moment to bloom again, often in ways we never expected. The Chicago rain fell in sheets that night, drumming against the diner's windows and creating rivers in the streets outside. Sarah had just finished restocking the napkin dispensers when headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating the empty parking lot. A sleek black SUV pulled up, its tinted windows obscuring any view of who might be seeking shelter from the storm at this late hour. The bell chimed as a tall figure entered, water dripping from his expensive coat. He chose a booth in the corner, away from the windows, removing his baseball cap only after he was seated. Had Sarah not been running on empty after another double shift, she might have recognized him immediately. But exhaustion had dulled her usual awareness, and in the diner's fluorescent lighting, he was just another customer seeking refuge from the rain. Michael Jordan surveyed the quiet diner, taking in the worn but clean surfaces, the carefully maintained sports memorabilia on the walls, and the specials board featuring hand-drawn basketball designs. His eyes lingered on the day's special, the three-point burger, nothing but net flavor. The description brought a smile to his face. Sarah approached his table with a fresh pot of coffee, her tired smile genuine despite the late hour. "Welcome to Pete's," she said, setting down a menu. "Our kitchen's still open if you're hungry." Her name tag was slightly askew, and a small basketball charm hung from her pen, a gift from Tommy that she touched for luck before every shift. Jordan noticed the careful way she moved, the kind of bone-deep fatigue he recognized from his own mother's days of working multiple jobs. Yet there was pride in her posture, dignity in how she maintained her professional demeanor despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. "The three-point burger," he said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone used to being heard. "That your creation?" He gestured to the specials board, where Sarah's distinctive handwriting gave the menu item its personality. Her face lit up slightly, professional fatigue giving way to genuine enthusiasm. "Yes, sir. 3 kinds of cheese, caramelized onions, and a special sauce that took me weeks to perfect." She didn't mention that those weeks of experimentation had happened in her tiny kitchen, with Tommy as her eager taste tester. "I'll try that," Jordan decided, handing back the menu. "And maybe you can tell me about these other basketball-themed specials you've got going here." His eyes moved to the wall where a collection of newspaper clippings about Chicago basketball history created a collage of memories. As Sarah turned to place his order, the diner's door chimed again. A homeless man entered, seeking shelter from the rain. Sarah's demeanor shifted subtly, concern replacing professional courtesy. "Hey, Robert," she said softly. "Rough night out there. Let me get you some coffee to warm up." Jordan watched as she poured a cup without hesitation, adding a slice of pie that she carefully recorded as her employee meal in the register. The interaction wasn't showy or seeking attention. It was simply human kindness in action, the kind that comes from understanding struggle firsthand. While preparing Jordan's burger, Sarah chatted with Robert, asking about his job search and offering suggestions about a shelter program she'd heard was accepting new residents. Her genuine care for others, despite her own visible exhaustion, struck a chord with Jordan. He'd seen that same spirit in his mother, that ability to give even when running on empty. The three-point burger arrived perfectly presented, with a small basketball pick holding it together. The attention to detail, the creative presentation, it spoke of someone who saw food as more than just sustenance. This was clearly the work of a cook who dreamed of being a chef. "My son Tommy helps me test all the basketball-themed recipes," Sarah explained as she set down the plate. "He says we have to make sure they're worthy of the game." Her voice carried that special warmth, reserved for speaking about one's children. Jordan took a bite, his eyebrows raising in genuine appreciation. The flavors were perfectly balanced, the execution professional. This wasn't diner food. This was culinary talent hiding in a late-night kitchen. Throughout his meal, he observed Sarah's interactions with the few other customers who drifted in from the rain. Each received the same genuine care, whether they were well-dressed, business travelers, or people down on their luck. She treated everyone with equal dignity, something that resonated deeply with him. What Sarah didn't notice, as she moved between tables with her coffee pot, was how intently Jordan studied the basketball drawings on the specials board, clearly done by a child's hand. She didn't see him notice the small photograph tucked behind the register of a young boy in a basketball jersey, his smile bright despite the challenges evident in his stance. The rain continued its steady rhythm against the windows as Jordan finished his meal, but his mind was already working on something bigger than a late-night dinner. Sometimes, the most significant moments in life come disguised as ordinary ones, and in this small Chicago diner, a plan was taking shape that would change more lives than anyone could imagine. As the rain continued its steady drumbeat against the windows, Sarah found herself sharing more than just coffee refills with her late-night customer. Something about his gentle questioning and genuine interest made it easy to talk, even through her exhaustion. She told him about Tommy's latest basketball milestone, managing to dribble with his right hand for 10 consecutive bounces, a feat that might seem small to others, but represented months of therapy and determination. "He practices every day," Sarah explained, pride evident in her voice. "His therapist says the repetitive motion helps with his motor skills. We can't afford the fancy equipment they have at the therapy center, so we make do with what we have. Sometimes the simplest tools work best, like using a basketball to help him learn to focus." Jordan listened intently, recognizing in her words the same resourceful spirit his own mother had shown during tough times. As Sarah spoke about Tommy's challenges and triumphs, she unconsciously touched the small basketball charm on her pen, a gesture he'd noticed her repeat throughout the night. The diner's door chimed again, and a young couple entered, their clothes damp from the rain. Sarah excused herself to tend to them, but Jordan noticed how her expression changed when she overheard their whispered conversation about only being able to afford one meal to share. Without drawing attention to their situation, she accidentally brought them extra sides and a larger portion, writing down only the cost of a single standard meal. "The kitchen was going to throw these out anyway," she said warmly when they tried to protest, though Jordan suspected this was far from the truth. He watched as she turned away to give them privacy, her small act of kindness delivered with the kind of dignity that preserved their self-respect. When she returned to refill his coffee, Jordan asked about the basketball-themed menu items. Sarah's face lit up as she explained how each special was inspired by Tommy's love of the game. "The full court press sandwich, that was his idea," she said, smiling. "He told me it. Needed to be pressed really flat, just like players pressing down the court. Sometimes his way of seeing things makes more sense than mine." As she spoke about her culinary creations, her passion for cooking became evident. Jordan noticed how her gestures became more animated, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten, as she described different flavor combinations and preparation techniques. This wasn't just a waitress doing her job, this was a chef without a kitchen of her own. The homeless man, Robert, was preparing to head back into the rain when Sarah stopped him. "Wait a second," she said, disappearing into the kitchen. She returned with a wrapped package. "Some leftovers from today's specials. Can't let good food go to waste." The man's grateful smile spoke volumes about how often she'd offered similar kindness. Jordan observed how she treated each customer with the same respect and care, regardless of their ability to tip or their appearance. When a group of rowdy teenagers came in with barely enough money for coffee between them, she didn't shoo them away. Instead, she gently steered them toward better behavior, with humor and understanding, even as they left only loose change as a tip. "They remind me of Tommy," she explained after they left, gathering their meager offering. "Everyone needs a safe place sometimes, especially on a night like this." She added their coins to a jar labeled Tommy's Therapy Fund that sat discreetly near the register. As the night grew later, Sarah shared more about Tommy's therapy journey. She didn't complain about the costs or the long hours she worked to afford them. Instead, she focused on his progress, each small victory celebrated as if it were an NBA championship win. "He watches old basketball games during his therapy sessions," she told Jordan. "Something about the rhythm of the game helps him focus. His therapist says he's never seen anything like it. Tommy can name plays and players' statistics, even though reading normal schoolwork is still a challenge." Jordan thought about his own journey, the countless hours of practice that had led to his success. But this was a different kind of dedication he was witnessing, a mother's relentless effort to give her child every possible chance at improvement, one double shift at a time. What struck him most was how Sarah found ways to help others despite her own struggles. Every act of kindness she showed came from a place of genuine empathy, an understanding that everyone fights battles others can't see. Her small acts of generosity, performed without expectation of recognition or reward, revealed a spirit that no amount of hardship had hardened. As the night wound down and the rain began to ease, Jordan had seen enough. In this tired waitress, he recognized something rare, the same kind of determination and heart that had driven him throughout his career. But Sarah's game wasn't played on a court with cheering crowds. Her victories were measured in small acts of kindness, in a child's progress, in hope maintained against overwhelming odds. Little did Sarah know, as she continued her rounds with the coffee pot, that her own game was about to change forever. Sometimes the biggest assists come from the most unexpected players, and tonight, the greatest player of all time was about to make the most important play of the game. The rain had finally stopped when Sarah's mysterious customer asked for his check. The diner had emptied, leaving only the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights and the soft music from the kitchen radio. She quickly tallied his bill, including the 3-point burger that he'd praised so enthusiastically, and placed it face down on his table with a tired but genuine smile. "The burger was excellent," he said, his voice carrying a warmth that seemed to fill the empty diner. "Reminds me of someone else who used to cook for me, someone who never got the chance to follow her dreams because she was too busy making sure I could follow mine." Sarah nodded politely, not yet realizing she was speaking to Michael Jordan himself. Her mind was already drifting to her morning routine with Tommy, calculating how many hours of sleep she could get before helping him prepare for school. The customer slid his credit card into the check presenter without looking at the total, then pulled out a small notebook. "I couldn't help but notice your basketball charm," he said, gesturing to her pen. "The one your son gave you." His words made her pause. She hadn't mentioned that detail during their conversations. As he wrote something in the notebook, he continued, "You know, some of the best plays in basketball look simple from the outside, but they change the whole game. Life's like that too sometimes." He tore the page from his notebook, folded it carefully, and placed it with his signed credit card slip. "Don't look at these until I leave," he said with a gentle smile. "Sometimes the best moments need a little suspense." There was something familiar about his smile, but Sarah's exhaustion-clouded mind couldn't quite place it. The man stood, his height impressive even in the modest surroundings of the diner. He put his baseball cap back on and zipped up his expensive coat. "Keep making those basketball-themed specials," he said as he turned to leave. "You never know who might stop by to try them." The bell above the door chimed one final time as he disappeared into the night. Sarah began her closing routine, wiping down tables and restocking supplies for the morning shift. The folded paper and credit card slip sat untouched by the register, waiting like a pause between heartbeats. Finally, with her tasks complete, she sat down at the counter and opened the credit card slip first. Her hands began to shake. The tip line showed an amount that couldn't be real, more money than she made in 2 months of double shifts. Below it, a signature she had seen countless times on Tommy's prized basketball cards, Michael Jordan. The realization of who had been sitting in her section hit her like a physical wave, making her grab the counter for support. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the note. As she read, tears began to fall onto the paper, smudging the ink, but not obscuring the life-changing words. "Dear Sarah, your 3-point burger was a slam dunk, but it's your spirit that's the real MVP. I've arranged for you to receive a full scholarship to the Chicago Culinary Institute, starting next semester. The enclosed tip isn't charity, it's an investment in a fellow player who deserves her shot at the game. But that's just the first quarter. I've also set up a fund for Tommy's therapy through my foundation. The coordinator will contact you tomorrow. No more double shifts needed. It's time for you to focus on your dreams while giving Tommy the support he needs. You remind me of my own mother, someone who never gave up, who helped others even when she had little to give. She taught me that true champions aren't just made on the basketball court. They're made in moments like tonight, when I watched you serve hope alongside coffee. Don't worry about the diner. I've already spoken to Pete. He's excited to have you continue developing specials while you're in school. Consider it your practice court. Sometimes the best plays come from unexpected assists. Now it's your turn to take the shot. Minus MJPS. Tommy's going to need a new basketball jersey. I hear number 23 is pretty lucky. Sarah sat in the empty diner, the note clutched to her chest, tears flowing freely now. The weight of years of struggle, of dreams deferred, of endless worry about Tommy's future began to lift. Through her tears, she looked at the specials board with its basketball-themed menu items, at the tip jar with its carefully saved coins, at the small basketball charm that had caught the attention of a legend. Outside, the Chicago skyline glittered with renewed promise. The same view she saw every night now seemed different. Not just a reminder of dreams put on hold, but a beacon of possibilities about to unfold. In her mind, she could already see Tommy's face when she told him who had eaten her three-point burger, could imagine his joy at having the therapy he needed, could picture herself in chef's whites instead of a diner uniform. This wasn't just a tip. It was a transformation, a moment when kindness and opportunity met determination and heart. As Sarah finally gathered her things to head home, she touched the basketball charm one more time, thanking whatever twist of fate had brought Michael Jordan into her diner on this rainy Chicago night. Dawn broke over Chicago differently that morning. Sarah hadn't slept at all. Jordan's note read and reread so many times she had memorized every word. As she helped Tommy get ready for school, her hands still trembled slightly, the reality of what had happened just hours ago still sinking in. "Mom, why are you smiling so much?" Tommy asked as she helped him with his breakfast. She'd been waiting for the right moment to tell him, wanting to make it special. Before she could answer, the morning news on their small kitchen TV made them both freeze. In an extraordinary act of kindness, NBA legend Michael Jordan made an unexpected visit to a local Chicago diner last night. The reporter announced. The screen showed Pete's Diner, a small crowd already gathering outside. Sources say Jordan left a substantial tip and life-changing opportunity for a single mother working the late shift. Tommy's spoon clattered against his bowl. "Mom? Was he at your diner?" His eyes grew wide as she nodded, tears welling up again as she pulled out the note. Together, they read Jordan's words, Tommy struggling but determined to read every letter himself, just as his therapy had taught him. The door buzzed, Mrs. Chen arriving to walk Tommy to school. But today was different. A sleek black car waited outside, a professional driver holding a sign with their names. "Courtesy of the Jordan Foundation," he explained with a warm smile. "We'll be handling Tommy's transportation from now on." News vans had already surrounded the diner when Sarah arrived for her shift. Pete stood outside, beaming with pride as reporters asked about his soon-to-be famous waitress and her basketball-themed menu. The small restaurant had become an overnight sensation. "Sarah," Pete called out, pushing through the crowd, "you've got some visitors inside." In his office sat two representatives from the Jordan Foundation, along with the dean of the Chicago Culinary Institute. They had papers spread across Pete's desk, scholarship documents, therapy program details, and a comprehensive plan for the transitions ahead. "Mr. Jordan was very specific," the foundation representative explained. "This isn't just about funding, it's about creating sustainable change. While you're in culinary school, we'll ensure Tommy receives top-tier therapy and support. Pete has agreed to keep you on part-time, developing specials and learning restaurant management." The dean added, "Your acceptance letter from 3 years ago? We've not only honored it, but upgraded it to our advanced program. Mr. Jordan was quite impressed with your three-point burger." She smiled, sliding across an official acceptance package with a start date just 2 weeks away. Throughout her shift, customers poured in, all wanting to try the burger that had impressed Michael Jordan. Every table had a story to share, about Jordan's generosity, about their own struggles, about dreams they hadn't dared to pursue. Sarah listened to them all, recognizing in their eyes the same hope that now filled her heart. Local business owners stopped by with offers of support. A uniform shop offered to provide Tommy's school clothes for the year. A medical group proposed a partnership with their pediatric therapy department. The owner of a prominent restaurant chain asked about franchising Sarah's basketball-themed menu concepts. But the most touching moment came when Robert, the homeless man from the night before, pushed through the crowd to reach her. In his hands was a slightly crumpled job application. "The shelter program you told me about?" he said, his voice thick with emotion. "They're working with the Jordan Foundation now. Got an interview tomorrow." By afternoon, the story had gone national. Sports networks picked it up, focusing on Jordan's continuation of his mother's legacy of giving back. Culinary programs discussed the importance of discovering hidden talent in unexpected places. Parents of special needs, children called the station, inspired by Tommy's story. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Tommy's school. His teacher had sent a video of him during lunch, proudly telling his classmates about his mom's cooking and showing them the note from Mr. Jordan himself. For the first time, his stutter didn't hold him back. His excitement carried him through each word clearly. Pete pulled Sarah aside during a quiet moment. "Remember when you first started here?" he asked. "You were so worried about taking double shifts, about having time for Tommy. I saw something special in your cooking back then, but you needed time to believe it yourself." He paused, looking around at his now famous diner. "Sometimes life knows better than we do when it's our time to shine." As evening approached, Sarah received one final surprise. A delivery arrived. A basketball jersey, size small, number 23. The note attached read simply, "For Tommy. Practice starts next week. MJ." The jersey came with information about a specialized basketball program designed for children with developmental challenges. Standing in the suddenly famous diner, surrounded by evidence of how much life could change in a single night, Sarah touched the small basketball charm on her pen. She thought about all the nights she'd spent here, dreaming of a better life while serving coffee and creating recipes. Sometimes magic happens in the most ordinary places, she realized. Sometimes hope wears a baseball cap and orders a burger, and sometimes the biggest dreams come true only after we've shown the universe our dedication to making smaller ones happen. The pristine kitchens of the Chicago Culinary Institute gleamed under bright lights as Sarah tied her chef's apron for the first time. Her hands, so used to holding coffee pots and order pads, now wrapped confidently around professional kitchen knives. The Jordan Foundation had arranged her schedule perfectly. Morning classes while Tommy attended his new therapy sessions, evenings free to be with him, and weekends at Pete's, developing her basketball-themed menu into something bigger than she'd ever imagined. Tommy's transformation had been just as remarkable. His new therapy program, specifically designed around basketball-based movements and exercises, had opened up a world of progress. The repetitive motion of dribbling helped his motor skills. Learning plays improved his memory and focus. His therapist had even incorporated cooking activities, letting him help create simple dishes that strengthened his hand coordination. "Mom, watch this!" Tommy called out during one of his therapy sessions. Sarah looked up from her culinary textbook, her heart swelling as she watched him successfully complete a dribbling pattern they'd been practicing for weeks. The other parents in the waiting area smiled knowingly. They'd become a sort of family, sharing victories and supporting each other through challenges. The Jordan Foundation had created a comprehensive support system that went beyond just financial assistance. They'd connected Sarah with other single parents in culinary school, forming study groups that shared childcare duties. Tommy's therapy center coordinated with her class schedule, ensuring she never had to choose between his needs and her education. At Pete's Diner, now a popular Chicago landmark, Sarah's weekend shifts had become culinary experiments. Pete had given her free rein in the kitchen, letting her test recipes for her advanced cooking classes while developing new basketball-themed specials. The three-point burger that had started it all was now the centerpiece of a menu that attracted food critics and sports fans alike. "You're not just cooking anymore," Pete told her one busy Saturday. "You're telling stories through food." He watched as she plated her latest creation, the full-court press panini, inspired by Tommy's improved ability to use the sandwich press in his occupational therapy. Each dish connected their journey to their dreams, one recipe at a time. The Jordan Foundation's monthly check-ins became celebrations of progress. Sarah shared her improving grades and new recipes, while Tommy demonstrated his latest therapeutic achievements. The foundation coordinator often remarked how their success story was inspiring similar programs across the country. One evening, as Sarah practiced knife skills in their small kitchen, Tommy sat at the counter doing his homework. His handwriting, once a source of frustration, had improved significantly thanks to the specialized therapy. "Mom," he said, looking up from his work. Are you happy now? The question made Sarah pause. She looked around their apartment, now filled with both her culinary textbooks and his therapy accomplishments. The stack of unpaid medical bills was gone, replaced by progress reports and recipe developments. The weight of constant worry had lifted, allowing space for joy to grow. Yes, sweetheart, she answered honestly. I'm very happy. Are you? Tommy's smile, bright and confident, was all the answer she needed. He pointed to the wall where his new jersey hung beside her chef's coat, a visual representation of their parallel journeys. The community continued to embrace them. Local restaurants offered Sarah apprenticeships for after graduation. Tommy's school implemented elements of his therapy program to help other students with similar challenges. The story of the late-night diner encounter with Michael Jordan had evolved into something greater, a testament to the power of opportunity meeting preparation. Sarah's culinary skills flourished under proper training. Her instructors praised her creativity and work ethic, noting how her experience creating specials at the diner had given her a unique perspective on menu development. She began to see cooking not just as a profession, but as a way to connect people, just as she had done during her late-night shifts. The Jordan Foundation arranged for Tommy to attend his first Bulls game, where he got to meet the team and share his progress. The players were impressed by his basketball knowledge and determination, but what really touched them was hearing him proudly talk about his mom's culinary achievements. She makes the best basketball food, he told them, his stutter barely noticeable now. And she lets me help test everything, just like I'm her sous chef. The players exchanged knowing looks. They'd all heard about the famous three-point burger that had started this journey. As Sarah mastered classical techniques and Tommy conquered new therapeutic challenges, their dreams took shape in ways they never expected. The long nights of worry had been replaced by evenings spent cooking together, his therapy exercises incorporated into meal preparation, creating a new kind of family tradition. Their story began to represent something bigger than just a generous tip or a scholarship. It showed how the right support could transform not just one life, but create a ripple effect of positive change. Sarah and Tommy weren't just achieving their individual dreams, they were showing others that with the proper help and determination, any dream could take shape. Success didn't mean the challenges disappeared, they just took different forms. Sarah discovered this one demanding morning as she raced between her advanced pastry class and Tommy's therapy appointment, her chef's whites dusted with flour and her mind spinning with French cooking terms. The culinary program proved more rigorous than she'd imagined, testing not just her skills, but her ability to balance it all. Tommy faced his own hurdles. As his therapy progressed, the exercises became more challenging. Some days, frustration would overtake him, and the basketball would bounce away, as his coordination failed him. But these moments revealed a new strength in both mother and son, the determination to push through difficult times together. Remember how hard the three-point burger was at first? Sarah would remind him during tough therapy sessions. But we kept trying, didn't we? One ingredient at a time, one bounce at a time. These words became their mantra, a reminder that progress wasn't always linear, but it was always possible. The Jordan Foundation noticed their perseverance. Soon, other NBA players began visiting the therapy center, inspired by Tommy's story. Each brought their own initiatives, basketball clinics adapted for children with special needs, funding for additional therapy equipment, mentorship programs that combined sports with education. Sarah's culinary journey caught the attention of Chicago's restaurant community. Her basketball-themed menu concepts had evolved into sophisticated dishes that maintained their playful spirit while showcasing her growing expertise. But with recognition came pressure. Each new recipe needed to live up to the story that had captured the city's imagination. One particularly challenging day, after a failed attempt at a complex French technique, Sarah found herself sitting in the culinary school's empty classroom, fighting back tears of frustration. Her instructor found her there, and rather than offer simple comfort, shared a perspective that changed everything. "You know," the instructor said, sitting beside her, "every great chef has a signature style that comes from their journey, not just their training. Your basketball themes aren't just gimmicks. They're your story. They're Tommy's story. Don't lose that while learning these classical techniques." This advice sparked a breakthrough. Sarah began incorporating her diner experience into her classical training, creating unique fusions that impressed her instructors. Her full-court press French onion soup became a talking point in culinary circles, proving that formal training didn't mean abandoning her roots. Tommy's progress inspired other families in the therapy program. Parents who had felt isolated in their struggles found hope in his achievements. The therapy center began implementing his basketball-based exercises more broadly, leading to improvements in other children's motor skills and coordination. Other NBA players, touched by Jordan's initial gesture, started their own programs in different cities. What began as one act of kindness in a Chicago diner had sparked a movement. Centers combining sports therapy with culinary training for parents opened in Detroit, Milwaukee, and Cleveland, each adapting the model that had worked so well for Sarah and Tommy. The challenges of balancing it all remained constant. Some nights, Sarah would stay up late practicing knife skills while reviewing Tommy's therapy exercises for the next day. The kitchen table became command central, one end covered with her culinary notebooks, the other with his therapy progress reports. But there were moments of pure joy that made it all worthwhile, like when Tommy successfully used his improved motor skills to help her pipe frosting onto cupcakes, or when he proudly demonstrated his dribbling progress to her classmates during a school visiting day. These small victories reminded them why they pushed through the hard days. The diner's weekend crowds continued to grow, but Sarah never lost touch with her roots. She made sure to maintain the same care and attention she'd shown during her late-night shifts, now teaching other staff the importance of seeing beyond simple customer transactions to the human stories behind them. News of their story spread further, inspiring others to create similar programs. A prominent Chicago chef, moved by Sarah's journey, established a scholarship fund for other parents pursuing culinary careers while caring for children with special needs. Tommy's therapy program became a model for sports-based intervention, studied by physical therapists nationwide. Yet, among all these developments, mother and son remained grounded in their daily routine of growth and challenge. Every evening, they would share their day's achievements and setbacks over dinner, usually something Sarah was practicing for class, with Tommy as her trusted taste tester. Even Michael Jordan missed shots sometimes, Tommy would remind his mom when she struggled with a new technique. His words, wise beyond his years, showed how their roles often shifted. Sometimes he was the student, sometimes the teacher, but they were always a team. As Sarah mastered each new culinary challenge and Tommy conquered each therapy milestone, their story became about more than overcoming obstacles. It demonstrated how the right support, combined with determination, could transform challenges into stepping stones towards something greater than initially imagined. The gleaming conference room of the Jordan Foundation headquarters felt a world away from Pete's Diner, but Sarah's famous three-point burger still held pride of place on the table. As she presented her restaurant concept to Michael Jordan and a group of potential investors, her hands steady and her voice confident, she couldn't help but think of how far they'd come. Over time, where food meets faith in the game, Sarah began, unveiling the logo Tommy had helped design. Not just a restaurant, but a community space where families dealing with developmental challenges can find hope, support, and amazing food. The concept combined her culinary expertise with her understanding of families like hers, creating something entirely new in Chicago's restaurant scene. Jordan leaned forward, the same intensity in his eyes that he'd shown during championship games. "Tell me more about the training program," he said, referring to Sarah's innovative plan to employ and train other parents of special needs children. Her idea was to create flexible schedules and on-site therapy spaces, allowing parents to work while staying close to their children. "Every parent I met during Tommy's therapy sessions had a dream on hold," Sarah explained, her passion evident in every word. Some wanted to cook, others to serve or manage. What they all needed was a chance, just like the one you gave me. Her business plan included culinary training partnerships with her alma mater and support services coordinated through the foundation. The restaurant's design incorporated elements from both worlds. The open kitchen would allow customers to watch their food being prepared, while specially designed quiet spaces would provide comfortable dining areas for families with sensory-sensitive children. The menu would feature her signature basketball-themed dishes, each with a story of triumph behind it. "The full-court press panini isn't just a sandwich," she told the investors, serving samples. "It represents Tommy learning to use kitchen tools in his therapy. The buzzer-beater brownies celebrate his first successful free throw. Every dish tells a story of victory, no matter how small. Community leaders in the room saw beyond the business potential. They recognized how the restaurant could transform their neighborhood, providing both employment opportunities and a gathering space for families who often felt isolated. The local therapy center director spoke about how the integrated approach could revolutionize family support services. Tommy, sitting quietly beside his mother during the presentation, had his own surprise to share. Standing up with newfound confidence, he demonstrated how the restaurant's tables would be specially designed to accommodate therapy exercises. "So kids like me can practice while waiting for their food," he explained, his speech clear and strong. Jordan's eyes met Sarah's, both remembering that rainy night in the diner. "You're not just building a restaurant," he said. "You're creating a blueprint for change." The other investors nodded in agreement. Before the meeting ended, the funding was secured, twice what Sarah had initially requested. The location they chose sat halfway between the Culinary Institute and the Therapy Center, a symbolic bridge between Sarah's two worlds. The building needed work, but its potential shone through the worn exterior. Large windows would flood the space with natural light, while the courtyard offered room for both outdoor seating and a small basketball court. As architects began drafting plans, Sarah worked with occupational therapists to ensure every detail served both practical and therapeutic purposes. The host stand would be adjustable for employees with different physical needs. The kitchen layout would accommodate workers who needed more space or specialized equipment. Even the dining room's traffic flow was designed to be accessible for all abilities. The community embraced the concept immediately. Local businesses offered support. A furniture maker volunteered to craft the specialized tables. A tech company promised to develop an app for coordinating therapy sessions with dining times, and Pete himself offered to mentor Sarah through the opening process. During a walkthrough of the space with the construction team, Sarah found Tommy shooting baskets in the future courtyard. "Mom," he called out, his voice echoing in the empty space. "Can we paint the lines like a real court?" His question sparked another idea, using the court for both practice and events where professional players could mentor children in the program. The Jordan Foundation's marketing team saw the broader potential. They began documenting the restaurant's development, sharing the story of how a late-night burger had evolved into a movement. Other NBA players expressed interest in funding similar concepts in their home cities. As opening day approached, Sarah added one final touch to the plans: a wall of dreams. "Every parent who works here will put their dream on this wall," she explained to Jordan during his site visit, "and we'll help make each one come true, just like you did for me." The restaurant was more than just a business venture. It was becoming a symbol of possibility. It showed that with the right support, dreams delayed didn't have to become dreams denied. As Sarah reviewed the final plans, her chef's coat now embroidered with "executive chef and owner," she realized that sometimes the best recipes combine unexpected ingredients, like basketball and cooking, therapy and dining, challenges and dreams. Opening night at Overtime was more than just a restaurant launch. It was a celebration of possibility. The line stretched around the block, a mix of food critics, sports figures, families from the therapy center, and loyal customers from Pete's Diner days. Inside, Sarah's vision had come to life in ways even she hadn't imagined. The open kitchen hummed with purposeful energy as her staff, many of them parents from Tommy's therapy center, worked with professional precision. Each had been trained not just in culinary skills, but in understanding the unique needs of their special customers. The dining room buzzed with conversation and laughter, punctuated by the occasional sound of basketball practice from the courtyard. Michael Jordan himself worked the room, not as a celebrity, but as a proud supporter. He stopped at each table, sharing the story behind the three-point burger that had started it all. But his longest conversations were with the families who recognized themselves in Sarah's journey, parents balancing dreams with their children's needs, finding hope in this new space. Tommy had his own role to play. Wearing a junior host uniform with a special assistant manager badge, he helped guide families with special needs children to specially designed quiet areas, or demonstrated how the therapeutic dining tables could double as practice spaces. His confidence showed how far he'd come, his speech clear and strong as he shared his expertise. The menu told their story in every dish. The full-court press panini, now perfected. through Sarah's culinary training, came with a card explaining its connection to occupational therapy. The buzzer-beater brownies were served by staff members who shared their own victory stories. Each plate that left the kitchen carried more than just food. It delivered hope. Local news crews captured the moment Sarah stepped out of the kitchen to address the full house. "A year ago," she began, her chef's whites pristine, "I was serving late-night coffee and dreaming of something more. Tonight, we're not just opening a restaurant, we're opening doors for others who dare to dream." The impact rippled out immediately. Other restaurants in the city began reaching out to the therapy center, looking to implement similar programs. The Culinary Institute, where Sarah had studied, developed a special curriculum for parents of special needs children, inspired by her success. The Jordan Foundation found itself fielding calls from across the country, all asking how to replicate the overtime model. But the most profound changes happened in the quiet moments, like when a nonverbal child used the specialized menu cards to order independently for the first time, or when a parent watching their child in the therapy court realized they weren't alone in their journey. The restaurant became more than a place to eat. It transformed into a community hub where understanding and acceptance were always on the menu. Sarah made sure to maintain the personal touch that had characterized her diner days. She knew every staff member's story, every child's favorite dish, every parent's dream still waiting to be realized. The wall of dreams she'd planned became a focal point, with new aspirations added regularly and celebrations held for each one achieved. The therapy court proved especially powerful. Professional players would drop by unannounced, spending time with children who faced physical challenges. They didn't just teach basketball, they shared stories of overcoming their own obstacles, showing that determination could take many forms. One evening, as the dinner rush wound down, Jordan returned for a quiet meal. He found Sarah in the kitchen, teaching a new staff member the perfect flip for the three-point burger. "You've created something special here," he said, gesturing to the bustling restaurant. "This is bigger than basketball or cooking. You've created a template for change." Sarah looked around at her kitchen team, each member selected not just for their skills, but for their understanding of the mission. Through the service window, she could see Tommy demonstrating a modified dribbling technique to a younger child, his therapy exercises now transformed into teaching moments. The restaurant's success inspired other businesses to rethink their approach to inclusive employment. Local companies began calling, asking for advice on creating adaptive workspaces and flexible schedules for parents of special needs children. Overtime became a case study in how social enterprise could transform communities. Food critics praised not just the cuisine, but the concept. "In a city full of innovative restaurants," wrote the Chicago Tribune's reviewer, "overtime stands apart. It serves hope as its main course, with a side of social change." The review highlighted how each detail, from the menu design to the table height, had been carefully considered to create an inclusive dining experience. As the first month of operation came to a close, Sarah hosted a special dinner for the original diner regulars who had supported her through tough times. Robert, the homeless man she'd once served free coffee, now worked as her kitchen manager. The teenagers who had left only loose change as tips were employed part-time while attending culinary school themselves. Together, they had proven that a restaurant could be more than a business. It could be a bridge between communities, a training ground for dreams, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful changes start with a simple act of kindness on a rainy Chicago night. The therapeutic basketball court behind overtime buzzed with excitement as Tommy stood at the free throw line, his stance confident and focused. 6 months had passed since the restaurant's opening, and both Tommy and the establishment had grown in ways no one could have predicted. The small crowd watching him, other children from the therapy program, their parents, and regular restaurant patrons, held their breath as he prepared his shot. His routine, practiced countless times during therapy sessions, had become second nature. Bounce the ball 3 times, square the shoulders, focus on the rim. The movements that had once been such a struggle now flowed naturally. The ball left his hands in a perfect arc, swishing through the net with a sound that brought cheers from the onlookers. But this wasn't just any free throw. It marked Tommy's 100th consecutive successful shot, a milestone that represented hours of therapy, determination, and the innovative program that had grown around Overtime's unique approach to combining rehabilitation with everyday life. The restaurant's court had become a symbol of possibility for families facing similar challenges. "That's my son," Sarah said proudly to Michael Jordan, who had come to witness Tommy's achievement. She had stepped out of the kitchen still wearing her chef's coat, the same way she used to watch his therapy sessions in her diner uniform. The difference now was that both their dreams had room to flourish together. Tommy's progress had inspired an entire program at Overtime. What started as a simple basketball court had evolved into a comprehensive therapy space where children could work on their skills while their parents either dined or worked in the restaurant. Physical therapists had developed a whole curriculum around the restaurant's unique setup, using everything from the modified dining tables to the kitchen tools as therapy equipment. The most remarkable transformation wasn't just in Tommy's physical abilities. His stutter, once a source of frustration, had almost disappeared. He had become an ambassador of sorts, helping new families feel comfortable in the restaurant and showing other children that their challenges didn't define their potential. His story of progress became a beacon of hope for parents, just beginning their journey. Local schools started sending their special education teachers to observe the program, learning how to incorporate similar movement-based techniques into their classrooms. Tommy often demonstrated exercises, his clear voice and patient explanations showing how far he'd come from the shy boy who struggled to order at a restaurant. The Jordan Foundation had taken notice of the program's success. They began documenting Tommy's methods and progress, creating a template that could be shared with other facilities across the country. What had started as one child's therapy had grown into a movement, showing how sports and everyday activities could be combined to create effective rehabilitation strategies. Sarah watched as Tommy moved from the basketball court to the dining room, where he helped a younger child navigate the specially designed menu cards. His natural empathy, born from his own experiences, made him particularly effective at connecting with other children facing similar challenges. The restaurant had become as much his success story as his mother's. Doctors and therapists began referring their patients to Overtime, not just for the innovative therapy program, but for the community of understanding it provided. Parents who had felt isolated in their struggles found a space where their children's differences were celebrated rather than hidden. Tommy's confidence showed them what was possible. One evening, as Tommy demonstrated modified basketball drills to a group of new therapy participants, a sports scout happened to be dining at the restaurant. Impressed by Tommy's ability to adapt complex movements for different ability levels, he suggested developing a formal coaching program for special needs children. This led to Tommy becoming the youngest certified adaptive sports instructor in Chicago. The restaurant's Wall of Dreams, which had started with Sarah's culinary aspirations, now included a growing section of achievements from the children in Tommy's program. Each victory, whether it was successfully tying shoelaces or making a basket, was celebrated with the same enthusiasm as a 5-star review of the restaurant. Medical journals began publishing studies about the Overtime method, highlighting how the integration of therapy into everyday activities had produced remarkable results. Tommy's journey from struggling with basic motor skills to becoming a peer mentor became a case study in the power of innovative rehabilitation approaches. As Tommy's reputation grew, other NBA players began stopping by specifically to work with him and learn his techniques for teaching basketball to special needs children. His ability to break down complex movements into manageable steps, combined with his first-hand understanding of the challenges involved, made him an invaluable resource. Sarah often found herself watching these sessions from the kitchen window, remembering the nights she'd worried about Tommy's future while serving late-night coffee at Pete's Diner. Now, as she oversaw a dinner service in her own restaurant, she could see her son not just thriving, but helping others find their path to success. Tommy's triumph wasn't just about physical achievements or therapy milestones. It was about showing the world that limitations are often just opportunities for innovation in disguise. His journey had become intertwined with Overtime's mission, proving that when you give people the right support and believe in their potential, extraordinary things can happen. 2 years after that rainy night in Pete's Diner, Sarah stood in the gleaming kitchen of Overtime's newest location, its 5th in the Chicago area. Each restaurant had become a beacon of hope, employing parents of special needs children and providing integrated therapy spaces. But more than that, each location represented a promise kept, that dreams put on hold didn't have to stay that way forever. The expansion had happened organically, driven by community need rather than pure business ambition. Each new Overtime restaurant maintained the original's core mission, combining culinary excellence with social purpose. The famous three-point burger remained on every menu, a reminder of how a single act of kindness could spark a movement. Tommy, now a recognized expert in adaptive sports training, had developed programs that ran across all locations. His method of combining everyday activities with therapy techniques had been adopted by rehabilitation centers nationwide. The shy boy who once struggled with basic motor skills had become a leader, showing others that challenges could become stepping stones to success. Michael Jordan himself had remained involved, not just as a supporter, but as a regular presence in the restaurants. He often said that of all his achievements, helping spark this chain of positive change ranked among his proudest. The Jordan Foundation had used the overtime model to create similar programs in cities across the country. On this particular morning, Sarah was preparing for a special celebration. Pete's Diner, where it all began, was being incorporated into the overtime family. The small restaurant where she'd once served late-night coffee would become a training center for aspiring chefs, facing similar challenges to those she'd overcome. "Mom," Tommy called from the dining room, where he was setting up for a therapy session. "The new families are here." Sarah watched through the kitchen window as her son welcomed a group of parents and children, his confidence and compassion showing in every interaction. The stutter that had once held him back was now completely gone, replaced by a strong, clear voice that inspired others. The restaurant chain had created a foundation of its own, offering culinary scholarships to parents of special needs children. Each recipient had their dream added to the wall of dreams, which had grown to include hundreds of success stories. Sarah made sure every new location had this wall, understanding the power of seeing possibility made visible. Local businesses had embraced the model, creating their own programs for inclusive employment and family support. What started as one restaurant's mission had evolved into a community-wide commitment to supporting families facing similar challenges. Other NBA players had started similar initiatives in their home cities, each adding their own unique elements to the core concept. Sarah's culinary expertise had earned her recognition in the food world, but it was her innovative approach to combining restaurant operations with social impact that truly set her apart. Culinary schools now included courses on accessible kitchen design and adaptive cooking techniques, using the overtime model as their template. The therapy programs had evolved as well. What began as simple basketball exercises had grown into a comprehensive approach to rehabilitation that included everything from cooking classes to modified sports training. Medical professionals regularly visited to study the program's success, leading to research papers and new therapeutic approaches. As Sarah prepared for the day's service, she noticed a familiar face at the door, Robert, the homeless man she'd once served coffee and pie during her diner days. Now he managed kitchen operations across all 5 locations, his own journey of transformation inspiring new employees. His success story was just one of many that had grown from that initial act of kindness. The restaurant's impact could be measured in numbers. Hundreds of families helped, dozens of dreams fulfilled, thousands of meals served. But the real legacy was in the moments that couldn't be counted. The first time a child successfully used adaptive cooking tools, the pride in a parent's eyes when receiving their culinary certification, the confidence that grew with each small victory. Tommy had recently started a mentorship program, pairing experienced therapy graduates with newcomers. "Everyone needs someone who believes in them," he would say, echoing the lesson learned from that fateful night when Michael Jordan had believed in his mother's potential. As the morning sun filled the restaurant with light, Sarah touched the small basketball charm she still kept on her chef's coat. It reminded her of how far they'd come, from late-night diner shifts to running a restaurant empire built on hope and possibility. But more importantly, it reminded her that success wasn't just about personal achievement. It was about creating opportunities for others to achieve their dreams too. The legacy of that rainy night in Pete's Diner had grown beyond anything they could have imagined. It proved that sometimes the smallest gestures, a generous tip, a kind word, a moment of recognition, could spark changes that transformed not just one life, but an entire community. In the end, Sarah and Tommy's story wasn't just about a restaurant's success or a child's triumph over challenges. It was about the power of belief, the importance of opportunity, and the truth that when we lift others up, we all rise together. One moment of kindness can change a life forever. Like Michael Jordan stepping into that diner, we all have the power to transform someone's world. Maybe you've been Sarah, working towards a dream that seemed impossible. Or maybe you've been the one to believe in someone when they needed it most. Share your story in the comments below. Who changed your life with a single act of kindness? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us, sometimes the biggest dreams start with someone simply believing in you.